Chapter 85.1. Being a knight didn't always mean adhering to honorable methods. As humans, knights could be just as dishonorable. Compared to the various cunning deceptions used in war, infiltrating in such a way wasn't particularly surprising. Of course, getting caught meant life could not be guaranteed. Let's flay his skin off. Sir Knight, please give me a chance. The warriors wanted to flay the knight's face with their sharp daggers. Johann raised his hand to stop them, and surprisingly, the ferocious warriors quieted down. The awakened knight looked at Johann with startled eyes. It was astonishing to see an outsider handle these fierce tribes so well. How exactly? You have two choices: speak before being flayed, or after. What will you choose? There's nothing to hide. I'll speak. The knight, Botan, readily revealed his purpose for being there. He was ordered by Bariska to secretly enter the tribal community, eavesdrop on information about their prey, and if possible, disrupt them. Aklada glared fiercely at Botan. I'm sorry, Sir Knight. I didn't expect other scoundrels to also covet the werewolf. For a prey of that caliber, it's not unusual for rumors to spread across the plains. Don't worry too much. Since they're resorting to such tricks, they clearly haven't succeeded in tracking it down. Indeed, it wasn't surprising for others to covet prey that the centaurs had been eyeing for a while. Johann thought of Bariska and other knights. While using deception was always an option, the type of deceit varied among individuals. Dressing as barbarians and infiltrating a tribe was a ruse not typically considered by knights. Surely? Who among your allies devised this strategy? Botan was shocked. He had no choice but to assume Johann already knew about the Arrowhead mercenary group. Botan was already disgruntled before arriving. To think he had to stoop so low because of a mere mercenary scheme. Even the mercenaries didn't partake in their own plan. No matter the money offered, they didn't want to venture near the barbarians unarmed. This prompted Botan to speak freely. He even disclosed the fact that they had hired mercenaries. The warriors were shocked. Even mercenaries? A guy named Galambos from the mercenaries came up with it. And what does he do? He's a hunter, originally a ranger from the east. That's all I know. Aklada, overhearing this, asked Johann in a whisper. Sir Knight, how did you know that Bariska had allies? Just guessed it. Despite saying it was a guess, Aklada still looked at Johann with admiration. Modesty aside, intuitively uncovering such things was indeed a warrior's instinct. Do you wish to be treated as a prisoner? I don't expect such from these barbarians. If you're going to kill me, just do it. Well, this elder here is about to skin you. Enough. Johann restrained the warriors who were about to attack again, and called them aside. This man's life is mine, right? Yes, it is. In thinking of letting him go, what do you think? The warriors, instead of reacting angrily to Johann's unexpected proposal, nodded in agreement. Truly like a Sir Knight from the Empire. I know what that is. That's a yoke, right? Did I use it correctly? Seems a bit different, but since Sir Knight caught him, do as you please. It's a pity we can't skin him, but it can't be helped. No, it's not for honor. Aklada asked with curiosity. Are you planning to release him and then follow him? It's impossible. We are masters of tracking, but he will notice since he has eyes. The plain was a cumbersome place to secretly follow someone, especially when the other party was alert and on guard. If he had a brain, he would check his surroundings repeatedly. Why not torture him and find out where he was supposed to meet? It can't be far. No. I thought about that too. Aklada had to suppress a laugh. He liked what Johann was saying. The ones who sent this knight must have prepared for such a situation. They wouldn't have failed to anticipate his capture. Aklada agreed with Johann's words. Indeed, the enemy would have prepared for such a scenario. Even if we locate their hideout and ambush them, it won't be much fun. They're likely in a place well suited for a fight. Indeed. But Sir Knight, even if they are prepared, we are confident of victory. I know that. There was no reason to spare the knight who crawled here and tried to infiltrate, as he would not yield any useful information. Johann's reasoning lay elsewhere. Think about it. You send a subordinate on a secret mission and he returns safely, but his face is a mess and his weapon gone. What would you think in such a situation? Already seeming discontented, wouldn't he be more suspicious? It seems better than walking into a trap thief prepared. Sir Knight is truly like Tangru. I heard that Tangru name before. Who is that? He was a warrior from our tribal myths, fought and died bravely. Oh. I like that. Aklada smiled satisfactorily at Johann's response. It was a relief that he didn't react negatively like other knights might have, deriding their polytheistic deity. Tangru, the destroyer of worlds and the embodiment of pure rage sent by the gods, burned cities from west to east and turned the weak into slaves. Isn't that just a madman? Johann almost blurted that out but restrained himself, out of respect for the other's beliefs. Chapter 85.2. Although the infiltrated knight discovered nothing, the group decided to move quickly. It was wise to hurry, knowing that others were also targeting the same werewolf. They could get ahead by gathering information elsewhere. Fortunately, as day broke, the hunters arrived in the town. Aklada was overjoyed, maintaining a dignified presence in front of Johann and the other warriors. There was concern about calling Johann and then finding the werewolves late, which could lead to losing the prey, not being able to proudly mention the Alkio tribe. The group packed lightly and traveled over the plains for more than 2 days to the location discovered by the hunters. During the journey, Aklada sent one person at a time to different locations. What are you sending them for? I asked them to call warriors from known tribes to be nearby. Didn't you say the night dastards couldn't be found? Aklada, who had rushed after hearing the news, boasted confidently. He said that by the time the slow-moving night dastards arrived, the hunt would already be over. But now calling tribal warriors nearby was unexpected. Doesn't the Empire proverb say to tap even a stone bridge before crossing it? Johann smiled wryly and nodded. It was a better habit to be prepared rather than overconfident. There were many nameless forests in the plains. Such forests were excellent havens for monsters. Even centaur hunters rarely ventured into these forests, especially in seasons like winter. However, those gathered here today had already made such a commitment. A warrior outstanding in the plains was as good as an exceptional hunter. Setting up camp a little away from the forest entrance, the group waited for dawn. The werewolves roam at night and return to their dens in the morning. So, when it's day, we'll enter the forest and attack their lair. Most had experienced werewolf hunting, so the discussion was quick. The warriors checked their weapons and bows. What if they come out and attack first? Werewolves are cunning and cautious, they don't hunt near their dens. They won't rush out just because we're at the forest's edge. It would be better if they did attack. The warriors exclaimed heartily. Unless surprised, the werewolves charging from a distance were their prey. Even the strongest werewolves fell quickly after a few hits from poisoned arrows. Johann felt reassured seeing the seasoned hunters among the gathered warriors. Warriors prepared for any situation were reliable companions. Johann decided to rest well in preparation for the werewolf hunt. And that night, werewolves charged out of the forest frenziedly. Werewolf! Werewolf! The warrior on watch woke up everyone, and those in the camp immediately rose, grabbing their weapons and armor. How many? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Is it 1? 2? Dozens. The awakened warriors widened their eyes and peered into the dim darkness. The ground thundered, and dozens of werewolves were seen running back and forth in the distance. Everyone, mount up. Grab your weapons. What's happening? Usually calm, Aklada too was puzzled and couldn't answer immediately. Why are so many werewolves madly running out of the forest like that? What on earth is happening? Have you never seen anything like this before? I'm sorry. Someone must have come before us. Otherwise, something like this wouldn't have happened. The ones who came first must have done something. Aklada realized what Johann meant. It was strange for such an event to occur while others were also hunting werewolves. It was too much of a coincidence. But how? I don't know. But Aklada, whatever has happened, does it really change what you and I need to do? Give your orders. Johann's composure was contagious. Aklada nodded and shouted. Move! Carefully lead the horses while watching the movements of the werewolves. Should we put out the fire? The ones who needed to see us already have. Throw torches around. It's better to increase the fire. The horses, sensing nearby werewolves, whinnied nervously. Johann comforted them, thinking to himself. Just like during troll hunts, horses are often inappropriate for monster hunting because they are surprisingly skittish. The howling of the werewolves grew louder, tearing through the ears. Those that ran out of the forest howled fiercely. The situation is definitely strange. They're not looking for prey, they seem to have just exploded in ferocity. A cladder! Some of them are heading this way. Even if they couldn't smartly hunt using sight or smell, once they started rampaging, they would eventually see their prey. A few approached rapidly. But the warriors, already mounted and ready to fight, were not intimidated. Retreat while shooting. The warriors rode backwards, turning their bodies to shower the werewolves with arrows. Despite the darkness, their arrows hit with astonishing accuracy. However, the werewolves' response was surprising. They swatted away arrows with their claws and rolled to dodge them, performing feats unbelievable in their frenzied state. But the warriors were a step ahead. They coordinated their shots. The arrows, aiming for openings and flying in succession, pierced through the werewolves' hides and muscles. Dash! A cursed scream was heard. A werewolf fell to its knees, unable to pursue any longer. It's better to retreat and wait until daybreak. Let's retreat, a cladder. Understood. Back. Wait. Someone's coming. The warriors quickly readied their arrows, aiming at the sound of a horse approaching through the darkness. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. What isn't that the night dastard? Did he trail us? He couldn't have trailed us in such complexity, just shoot him. Johann restrained the warriors, shouting. Give us a reason not to kill you. I will tell you where Sir Bariska is. Chapter 86.1. Sir Knight. The reaction of the warriors was natural. In the midst of the chaos, a guy who had been caught suddenly appeared and offered to reveal Bariska's location, which was bound to raise suspicions. And Johann was honestly a bit flustered too. The intention of releasing Botan was to cause internal strife by having them attack each other, not to expect such a betrayal. To be betrayed so readily after being released was too good to be true, making Johann himself suspicious. A cladder looked at Johann with a mix of awe and surprise. This is not what I had aimed for. Still, you are amazing, Sir Knight. It's like fortune favors you. Talking about luck in a situation where werewolves are going berserk is a bit. Sir Knight. Should I shoot? No. Don't shoot. We need to hear the story. From Johann and the warrior's perspective, it was like. But from Botan's perspective, it was different. Botan was chosen for a dangerous infiltration mission solely because of his agility, despite not knowing Eastern language well. He was mocked and insulted upon his failed return. Bariska stopped Botan, who was ready to draw his sword right then. The reason was not to start a fight before the hunt, but his true intentions were different. Bariska was doubting Botan. Johann's plan had worked perfectly. Bariska's suspicious nature only amplified the effect. Botan couldn't help but compare Bariska and Johann. One fought honorably from the tournament and even showed mercy to captured prisoners, while the other. Johann's expression twisted strangely as he listened. That's how it could seem. Wouldn't it have been better to just run away instead of betraying? If I had openly done that, an arrow would have come flying at my back. Sir Bariska is not stupid. How I acted to avoid suspicion. I'm not really interested in how you shook off suspicion. Tell me, how did you get here, and why is all this chaos happening? A cladder, who was listening, interrupted with a question. How did you tail us? Tail us? We did no such thing. That's impossible. But it was true. Bariska's group was able to come to this forest not because of tailing, but because Galambos found traces of werewolves. More precisely, hunters acquainted with Galambos brought news of werewolves. A cladder's face flushed with humiliation. A centaur being outdone in tracking by a human in the plains. His hands holding the bow quivered. You're more skilled than I thought. It's just this once, Sir Knight. Usually. I get it. I get it. So why are the werewolves going crazy? That's the doing of that Eastern Ranger. Ordinarily, werewolf hunting should have been as cautious as the centaurs described. Moving in and out of the forest, targeting the werewolves' weak moments. That way, even the werewolf leader would have no answer. But that's a task that requires quite a long time. From Bariska's perspective, who didn't know when an interruption might come, he wanted to quickly lure out the werewolf king and defeat him. Under the knight's urging, Galambos did something unusual, claiming it to be a secret technique of the Eastern hunters. He released a few pigs he had brought from somewhere into the forest and confidently declared. Not only the knight but also the mercenaries thought? However, surprisingly, the werewolves began to rampage from the middle of the night. Is this a known method? No. The secrets of the Eastern hunters are often bizarre and unique. It seemed that Aklada was quite upset about being outdone by the Eastern hunter. Instead of a relaxed demeanor, he was grinding his teeth in frustration. So, what about Bariska? He and the others are waiting on the opposite side. When all the werewolves come out, the werewolf king will too, and we'll catch him then. They don't know you're here. How did you know? I was just watching for an opportunity. I kept circling around to check whenever I could. The two groups actually did not arrive much differently. It was purely luck that Botan was able to spot Johann's group from a distance. As soon as he spotted them, Botan caught a horse and rushed over with all his might. Trust me. How can I trust someone who crawled into someone else's camp? It's worth checking out. He'll go and check and come back. The warriors were shocked at Johann's words. It's dangerous for Sir Knight to go alone. If there's a trap, it's easier to escape alone. I brought it up, so he'll go and check. Johann's confidence overwhelmed and convinced the warriors. They no longer opposed and nodded their heads. Sir Knight. Take Euclia with you. Shall be helpful. Seizing the moment, Euclia eagerly tried to show off her skills in fluent Empire language. Empire Knight, he'll tear them apart. I'm good at tearing. All right, two should be fine. Botan. Lead us to where they are. Chapter 86.2. That's freakishly fascinating. How did you do it? Do you know that werewolves are fond of the moon? Of course. I heard from a hunter I used to run with. He was an experienced hunter who had caught dozens of werewolves. He said that werewolves go crazy at the sight of moonstone. Really? Yes. While monsters are sensitive to scents, moonstone especially drives them wild. That's why I mixed moonstone powder into the scent to lure the monsters. I see. So that's why they're going berserk like that. Right. The werewolves will pounce on any pig that enters the forest, and the scent on them will transfer to others. Galambos boasted with pride, showcasing his knowledge. Even the fierce mercenaries of the Arrowhead mercenary group listened in awe. You deserve the recognition you get from the knights. Don't be envious. You reap what you sow. Isn't it a bit arrogant to fight werewolves ourselves? At the mercenary's words, Galambos waved his hand in warning. Don't threaten carelessly. They might run away immediately. In this darkness, surrounded by the forest, no mercenary wanted to engage in a chase with the Eastern hunters. Besides, Galambos' role was far from over. So, when does this werewolf king appear? Soon. You'll know by its howl. Just follow the sound. Is it that different from regular werewolves? Bigger in size and different in color. Each leader monster has its own traits. Usually, they're much faster, stronger, and smarter than regular werewolves. Galambos took a sip of beer and continued. But a frenzied one is easier to trap. Just do as I say. It wasn't a lie? Botan had a bitter expression. Johann seemed to believe him. Open your eyes, or he'll gouge them out. You play the Empire game well. Euclia blushed and waved her hand shyly at Johann's compliment. Botan, looking incredulous, said, I spoke the truth. That's a camp over there. Like the centaur's camp, their camp was expertly concealed, barely letting any light escape. It would have been hard to find without Botan leading them. Johann was troubled upon actually locating the enemy's position. The timing was delicate. With werewolves rampaging nearby, attacking them could lead to mutual destruction in an unlucky scenario. These monsters, currently howling at the moon in madness, were unpredictable. They could be drawn by the smell of blood and sounds of battle. Johann pondered, while Euclia fidgeted beside him, asking. Johann patted her back reassuringly. Wait. Don't get any closer. That Eastern hunter said he set traps. Stick to this path. Ah. So, the plan was to draw the werewolves here. Wait a minute. In that moment, Johann felt a wicked idea cross his mind. Johann and Euclia circled the area, calling out the werewolves. Johann, with a bow in hand, shot at the werewolves' arms or shoulders. Valkalma! Johann was increasingly adept at wielding the power of the malevolent spirit. Valkalma produced optimal results even in challenging situations. The surrounding werewolves, ceasing their howling, began to gather more and more. Johann signaled to Euclea. "This is, really." "What? Thinking of switching sides again? Don't insult me with such nonsense." Botan, helping out, was first astonished, then serious. He had no intention of returning to Bariska. However, Johann's plan was truly horrifying. To gather the nearby werewolves and take them to that camp. "This way! This way, you wolf brutes! Come this way!" Since mastering magic, Johann's voice had begun to contain a strong power. As Johann shouted, the werewolves followed, as if whipped into changing direction. "Let's go! Let's bring glory to Sir Bariska and the knights." Euclea, with an excited expression, chased after Johann, shouting. Unlike Botan, for a centaur, this was pure enjoyment. "Wait. That sounds like a human voice." Galambo suddenly stood up. There was something odd mixed in with the werewolves howling. "Did you drink the wrong beer?" "Quiet. There's a human voice. The werewolves howling like this, one could be mistaken. Others have come. It's definitely those centaur brutes." "What? Damn it. You said you were the fastest?" "Centaurs can be fast too. Am I the only one who's fast? We should report to the knight. The knight's going to freak out." Wait. What? You want us not to report?" "No." The sound of hooves. The ground-pounding sound grew louder. Galambos' face began to sink. Werewolves. Damn it. Those patrolling nearby spotted it first. They shouted at the top of their lungs. "Damn wolves, are they crazy? Hey, Hunter! You said they wouldn't come this way. Shut up and get ready to fight." Galambos was also flustered. How could this happen? But the werewolves were already charging fiercely. The mercenaries hid behind obstacles, drawing their weapons. "Scatter! Scatter! Shouldn't we gather? It's better to scatter when they're running wild, asshole. Just listen and call the knight. Tell him to catch a werewolf." Thanks to the werewolves drawing attention, Johann easily entered the camp. A mercenary, staring blankly at the werewolves, locked eyes with Johann. "Where is Sir Bariska?" "Ah." A hole in the body usually loosens the tongue. The mercenary, screaming, pointed in a direction. "Thanks." Johann rode off. He saw faces coming with torches in the pointed direction. It was Sir Bariska and the other knights. "Bariska of the Petrio family. Come at me. I'll give you a chance for revenge." Bariska was startled. The one he wanted to avenge suddenly appeared before him. But his panic didn't cloud his judgment. "Turn and block him so he can't escape. I'll strike him myself." Euclea, cursing, threw her spear. A knight, turned to dodge, hastily crouched to avoid it. This damned centaur. Valkalma. Chapter 87.1. Johann drew his arrow and pulled back the bowstring. The knight, reassured by his armor and shield, was shocked as the arrow precisely pierced a small exposed vital spot, causing him to fall in agony. Bariska. It's despicable to make an honorable knight do shameful deeds and secretly hire mercenaries behind his back. Don't you have the courage to confront directly? Johann rebuked Bariska. Johann didn't particularly despise Bariska or rage with. However, as a knight, he had to assert that he had a just cause in any situation. In fact, some of the knights around Bariska hesitated at Johann's outcry. "Drop your weapons and surrender. If you do, you'll be given a chance to be tried before the Duke. Kill that foreign bastard." Of course, a knight who would be ashamed and reflect upon such words wouldn't have started this in the first place. Bariska fiercely shouted, pointing at Johann. Despite being masked by honor and piety, a knight was essentially a barbaric and violent beast. This was more evident in situations driven by desire. The knights charged at Johann with a battle cry. Unyielding, Johann spurred his horse towards them. As the mace swung with a deadly sound, the clashing knights were thrown back. Even in the darkness, Johann's valor shone brightly. The knights showed a look of seeing a demon, unable to stop just one man from breaking through their formation. Despite riding the same horses and wearing the same armor, why couldn't they stop him? "Bariska, are you scared?" Stop hiding behind other knights and come out yourself. How dare this insolent man? An irate Bariska gripped his weapon and glared at Johann. A true knight wouldn't cower just because he was once defeated. I must thrust this spear into that man's neck. Bariska, with a spring in his step, spurred his horse forward. It was surprising when Johann suddenly appeared, but he had thought several times about how to fight if they met again after the tournament. The strength of the knight named Johann was immense, as if he had made a pact with a demon. He had to avoid colliding and tire him out by circling around him. Bariska was confident. Even if Johann's strength was great, he could not match his horsemanship. Suddenly, a werewolf leaped out from the side. The werewolf that appeared was of a different dimension than ordinary ones, with a body size that stood out. Its fur, dyed white, was noticeable even in the darkness, shining as if illuminated. "Hey!" A scream followed by a spray of blood. The werewolf quickly knocked down Bariska and tore into him. "It's the leader!" At someone's shout, Johann snapped to attention. He grabbed and threw his spear. The werewolf king, with a wild cry, flung his body backward. The eyes of the beast shone cunningly, uncharacteristic of a ferocious monster, as if sizing up Johann. A knight, close to Bariska, bravely charged forward on his horse. The werewolf king caught the flying sword with its teeth and struck the knight with its paw, causing a fall. No! Having caught two, the werewolf king howled in satisfaction and fled with one in each arm. This patience was also uncharacteristic of a monster. Unbelievable. Johann was also stunned. A werewolf that attacks then flees. Euclia's expression also hardened in disbelief. I surrender, sir. Voices of knights came from the front. Euclia gestured a throat-cutting motion. Johann shook his head. He had told Bariska earlier that he would have a chance to stand trial before the Duke, but it wasn't sincere. He was certain he would attack. If Bariska were taken to the Duke, he could cause trouble, and if the matter turned into a battle of truths, it would be a headache for Johann, an outsider. Bariska must be dealt with here. But there was no need to kill the rest. Will you swear to testify about Bariska's actions before the Duke? The remaining knights hesitated momentarily but nodded. After all, Bariska was the instigator. In this situation, he would be the one to bear the brunt. Johann escaped the camp with the surrendered knights. Mercenaries who barely escaped the werewolf riot appeared, their faces drained of life. Upon seeing the mercenaries, the knight immediately hurled curses and insults at them. "You worthless hunter! You caused this chaos! What kind of Eastern Ranger are you? What secrets do you hold? Like a wild dog biting its master. It was a mistake to call upon the likes of you. Are you done talking? Thanks to your tantrum in the middle of the night, I feel terrible." The mercenaries, angered by the knight's insults, clenched their weapons. Johann observed this and said, "If you draw, I will cut." The mercenaries were startled by the unfamiliar knight. Why was there someone they hadn't seen before? Bariska was captured by the werewolf, and these knights have surrendered. What do you plan to do? We also surrender. Chapter 87.2. The mercenaries, quicker to catch on than the knights, immediately dropped their weapons as they realized the oddity of the situation. With Bariska gone and other knights captured, their situation was hopeless. They could do nothing, and they weren't particularly loyal either. Who among you is the Eastern Ranger? It's this bastard. This guy, always running his mouth. The mercenaries dragged out Galambos, whose face was battered from being caught while trying to escape. Galambos cried out in desperation. "It's not my fault." The werewolves went mad. Seeing Galambos make excuses, Johann felt a pang of guilt. None of those present seemed to think that Johann had herded the monster in their direction. "Shut up, you quack! We nearly died because of you. Be quiet." Johann silenced the mercenaries and made Galambos recount what had happened. The secret of the Eastern Ranger was so intriguing that Johann became absorbed, forgetting the situation. The werewolf leader seemed too sane to be mad. It worked on the werewolves, but not on the werewolf king. Damn this asshole! The mercenaries were infuriated but understood Galambos' point. Such anomalies were unpredictable. Galambos thought desperately. Given the circumstances, he was definitely facing execution. "I'll track where the leader went. There are plenty of traces left to follow." The mercenaries were astounded. Despite the chaos, he was determined to pursue the werewolf again. But Johann was intrigued. While it was tempting to return and accuse Bariska of his crimes before the Duke, capturing a worthy prey seemed more appealing. You can track it? I stake my life on it. Then, tribal warriors rushed in from a distance. They had come searching when Johann didn't return. Aklada asked about the chaos at the camp. Indeed, Sir Knight. We can't let the prey escape like this. Aklada strongly agreed. The death of a few mercenaries and knights was irrelevant. What mattered was capturing the prey or letting it escape. The people gathered nearby and did not easily disperse. Such feasts were rare, and they were curious about the prey the knights would bring back. As the knights returned one by one, the crowd cheered and was ecstatic. Among them, there was a knight who returned empty-handed, trudging along. When that happened, jeers were mercilessly poured out. And when the sun was at its highest, Johann and his party returned. Initially, people were puzzled by the presence of several knights, but such questions soon disappeared. The prey among the knights was too impressive. It's a werewolf. A werewolf? Aren't werewolves not that remarkable? You crazy fellow. Knowing how ferocious werewolves are. But still, the mercenaries who came to our town last time caught one too. How foolish. You can say that because you don't see it from there. Come out and see. If that's just a werewolf. It's the Werewolf King. They caught the Werewolf King. Even to the untrained eyes, the werewolf, with its massive size and white fur, looked extraordinary. As soon as someone well-informed opened their mouth, the news spread quickly. The mercenaries driving the cart with the werewolf's corpse in the middle were anxious and nervous, even as they received cheers. Is this really okay? What else? Run away? Shut up, you fools. Unless you want to be hanged. The mercenaries' anxiety was understandable. It was a hunt held in honor of the Duke. A minor deception might be overlooked, but hiring mercenaries was a direct challenge to the Duke's authority and honor. No noble would overlook such audacity. If lucky, hanging was the fate; if not, a more terrible death awaited. Johann promised to spare their lives if they did not show any other intent, but it was hard to believe. These were men who had lived by betraying others. Even if the opponent was an honorable knight, the thought of what if was inevitable. Duke Bredu looked satisfied from atop the castle walls. The Alcia tribe has not disappointed me. Indeed, they have not. But fighting alone. It's rare for a knight to find such a worthy prey, but they might meet several while pursuing one. It's also honorable for knights to join forces to capture it. The Duke had anticipated such a gathering. After the Duke said this, no one else brought it up. I see the bodies of knights behind. It's a glorious death. Though it might seem strange for people to die at a festive event, in this world, it was natural. Just as a few unlucky knights did not awaken during the tournament, hunting was the same. Life was trivialized for honor and glory, especially among the knightly class. Those watching made the sign of the cross, mourning and paying respects to the knight. Duke looked puzzled at the sight of the flags hung. Death was equal to all. Any knight could fall to a single unlucky arrow. But Bariska did not seem like a knight who would actively put himself in danger. Wasn't he a knight who calculated gains and losses while being escorted by other knights? Moreover, the fact that Eastern tribal warriors had retrieved the body was puzzling. They were unlikely allies. The first to greet the prey was the Duke's gamekeeper. In fact, the job wasn't much different from that of a regular gamekeeper, but the honor was of a different dimension. It was a prestigious position that only the fortunate lower nobility could hold. Therefore, the competition was fierce, and one couldn't last long without sufficient skills. The gamekeeper had to be far more experienced than the average hunter. This gamekeeper, with a puzzled expression, rummaged through the body of the werewolf with his hands. There was nothing where there should have been. There were no wounds on the creature's body. It was naturally assumed that it was caught with poison, but there were no traces of poison, nor were there any marks of swords or spears. What exactly was used to catch it? May we enter? Enter. Johann and his party passed through the open city gates and entered the city. It was their first time entering the city, as they had to stay outside during the tournament last time. It was something he felt even from a distance, but the city, dating back to the ancient empire era, had an awe-inspiring appearance. Did you see the gamekeeper's face? It's understandable he'd be confused. Aklada burst into laughter. He knew why the gamekeeper was bewildered. Honestly, he would have been surprised too had he seen it. The laughing Aklada suddenly stopped and asked, "But why did you collect the body of that guy and bring it back?" From secretly hiring mercenaries to attempting to disrupt the sacred hunt, such actions were unforgivable. Normally, it would have been enough to leave the body in the fields for the beasts to tear apart. It's mercy. Excuse me? Don't be so surprised by a joke. I thought it might be useful given the situation. Chapter 88.1. When the werewolf fled with Bariska, even Johann was honestly flabbergasted. Who would have thought the monster would cut off his air supply? But that thought soon changed. Better this way. Bariska had committed a fraud, and Johann had no intention of spreading it far and wide. This was an event organized by the Duke, and it concerned the Duke's prestige and honor. For Johann to act recklessly at such an event was dangerous. He must speak to the Duke first. The Duke, being a wise man who knows right from wrong, would understand why Johann spoke first. He would make an appropriate decision. Johann's aim wasn't to expose the dishonorable knight and punish him. It was enough for Johann to succeed in the hunt and earn the Duke's trust. I may not know much about the Petrio family, but they must be quite wealthy if they can hire mercenaries and travel with knights. Hiring mercenaries and even feeding the knights they traveled with meant they couldn't be short of money. Aklada nodded. They're quite a famous family. Though they wouldn't dare come forward in this case, having committed fraud themselves, human hearts are not so simple. If we had killed them, they would have held a grudge against us. Neither you nor I are on particularly good terms. Ha. They're more likely to dislike me than Sir Knight. But if a monster killed the knight, and we not only dealt with the monster but also properly handled the knight's body, who would hold a grudge? We'd rather be thanked. At Johann's words, Aklada looked intrigued. The way of thinking of tribes outside the empire, clearly dividing life and death, allies and enemies, differed from Johann's in these aspects. And among the knights, few could make such a decision. Of course, such a decision was honorable even for a knight. But who could readily offer such a thing to a recently fierce opponent? Especially when the opponent had first acted despicably. Johann asked, as if bewildered. Is it that surprising? Yes. Honestly, it's surprising to see someone who was hunting so fiercely showing mercy. That's a different story. Johann had no answer to Aklada's words. This time, he honestly acted a bit crazy. Galambos desperately tracked the location. The resilience of the Eastern patrolman, facing a life-threatening crisis, was astonishing. Thanks to him, the party was able to closely follow the Werewolf King. The Werewolf King, instead of entering the forest, ran across the meadow, trying to find another hideout, but it was a poor decision. Thanks to that, the warriors dispersed in all directions, driving the werewolf. Galambos also made a proper judgment this time. The Werewolf King persistently avoided fighting. The chase that started when the moon set only ended at dawn. Both horses and men were exhausted, and the Werewolf King was completely drained. As the creature's movement slowed, the centaurs finally shot their poisoned arrows to cut off its breath. Until then, they hadn't dared to aim because of its eerily agile movements. Depending on where the injury is, the value of the skin varies. Therefore, an experienced hunter would also be careful about the location of such wounds. Euclia blushed and nodded. Her eyes were filled with a longing for blood and violence. However, the centaurs didn't need to step in. Johann approached the werewolf, knocked it down, then strangled it to death. The watching centaurs were so surprised that they dropped their bows. Chapter 88.2. That's how it came to be, Your Grace Duke. Johann's accusation was met with a look of surprise and understanding from Duke, who nodded. Aklada grumbled inwardly. Even in this situation, the Duke showed no change in expression. He had expected at least some panic or anger. However, contrary to Aklada's thoughts, the Duke was truly astonished. How dare someone commit such fraud at his event? It was unclear whether it was audacity, fearlessness, or sheer madness. Bariska was rather fortunate. He died at the hands of a monster. Had he returned alive, he would have been paraded through the city on horseback, naked, before heading to the gallows. Why didn't you spread this truth? The people outside think Sir Bariska died honorably. It's your Grace's event, and as an outsider who came from afar, how could I dare to judge and punish? It's rightfully within your Grace's authority. Aklada thought so. There were two types of flattery, one ineffective when known and the other effective even when known. The current situation was the latter. The Duke nodded his head. With those words, Duke greatly elevated his opinion of Johann. Remarkable. To have such a knight. It was surprising that, in addition to bravery in battle, such a young knight could make political considerations. Another young knight would have beheaded Boriska, mounted his head on a spear, and paraded around shouting. Envious. Those who held positions and worked around the Duke were either from lower noble families with long ties to the Bredoux family or from noble families that needed political consideration. Though an outsider with none of these connections, the Duke wanted to entrust Johann with a position. It was greed for his capabilities, but more than anything, he was curious. As a feudal lord who had governed people for a long time, he was curious about the extent of this young knight's skill he had rashly judged. Having made his decision, Duke stood up. He had a look of deep emotion, with tears glistening in his eyes. Sir Johann. Thank you. I'm grateful. He embraced Johann heartily. It wasn't a special calculation but a habit formed over a long time. Subordinates are deeply moved by a single tear and commit their lives. Why not use this method, much cheaper and more effective than gold or silver coins? Aklada had to bite his lip to suppress laughter. Johann's expression was too indifferent. Sir Knight was indeed a never-tiring companion. After the embrace, Duke held Johann's shoulder and said, Your sincerity in considering the honor and dignity of Bredoux has moved me deeply. I sincerely thank you. You flatter me too much. State your wish. Johann did not miss the inquisitive sparkle in Duke's eyes. It wasn't surprising. He was a person who continuously evaluated and judged others. I have a request. What is it? I hope you show mercy to the knights and mercenaries who were with Sir Boriska. The Duke was impressed. Not gold or weapons, but mercy. Considering the insight Johann showed, it was clear that the decision was not out of pure goodwill, but for political considerations. However, one thing was incomprehensible. It was understandable to ask for clemency for the knights, but why for the mercenaries? They were not a remarkable band of mercenaries, just insignificant ones that could be picked up anywhere. There was no benefit in keeping them alive. The Duke was slightly conflicted. He wanted to ask, but there was the dignity of being Duke. In the end, the Duke refrained and nodded. If I don't listen to you despite you saying so, Bredoux's name would be shamed. Don't worry. I will show mercy. I'll let the knights know who saved them. Do you desire anything else beyond such a selfless request? Yes. It would be troublesome to receive more for doing what was rightfully expected. And you? The same for me, Duke. I have already enjoyed more honor than I deserve. Aklada quickly responded. Even if the Duke handled the matter quietly, the Petrio family couldn't escape punishment. They would have to pay a substantial compensation to the Duke, which would ultimately benefit Duke. Duke shed tears once again. I must be blessed by the gods. To have such honorable knights serving me. No, Duke. No, you flatter me too much. The only one unaware of the drama unfolding here was the Duke. He never imagined the two young knights were acting far more coldly than him. A meal as well? That sounds delicious. No, Sir Knight. Aklada said in a flustered voice. Such a reaction there? Does it taste bad? No. It's not that. I'm just surprised by the overly generous treatment. Ah. Is that what you meant? It was a great honor to have a meal with the Duke, even on a non-special occasion. That means he thinks highly of you. It's not surprising. Perhaps he's trying to completely win us over. Win us over? Ah. Don't you use this expression? It means to be completely charmed. Aklada almost teased. But then, he realized it wasn't something only applicable to Euclea. Just like the quiet and reticent Euclea seemed charmed, other warriors also trusted and followed this knight from outside, as if they had known him for years. Aklada himself included. It was the same during the hunt. When Johann said to scatter and surround, no one doubted and dispersed. Meanwhile, the Duke was talking to the gamekeeper at that time. The knights who were to return had already started coming back. The Duke had to choose the knight who performed the best in the hunt. How was this caught? The Duke, looking at the prey, asked an obvious question. The body of the werewolf king, without a single injury. Among the bodies of monsters covered in blood and wounds, the pure white, unscathed werewolf stood out notably. The gamekeeper sighed and then knelt down. Your Grace, Duke. I apologize for my lack of ability. I couldn't figure it out. I am ashamed before you. It's all right. I know your skills. The Duke, instead, patted the gamekeeper's shoulder. The gamekeeper teared up, moved. The Duke thought so internally. He had no personal grudge against the gamekeeper, but his incompetence was unforgivable. The quartermaster boasted about bringing in good meat last time, so let's use that. Shall I instruct the chef to showcase his skills? Upon the steward's words, the Duke nodded. Allowing the chef to show off his skills would naturally lead to conversations. Managing such minor details was also the steward's role. Call the young Brodus as well. It would be pitiful to only deal with the ragamuffins. Yes. The steward nodded without showing his feelings. Calling the children as well must mean they really pleased him. Chapter 89.1. Upon hearing that young Brodu children were also coming, Aklada had an expression of discomfort. Why is that? The stars of Brodu are rather daunting to deal with. The centaurs, like the people of the empire, or even more so, were believers in superstition. To them, Duke's children, who were twins and strikingly alike, were a spine-chilling existence. Are there any among them to be wary of? No, it's not like that. They're all conscientious people. Aklada stated this definitively, which made Johann more curious. Even with so many of them? If there had been any among them who were debauched or delinquent, it would have been less daunting. In those times, being lustful or gluttonous was not particularly problematic. The church might disapprove, but others would likely praise such behavior as hearty. However, there were no such rumors about Duke's children. They were all reputed to be faithful, humble, and capable. Even with the prestige of the Duke's family, such rumors would have been hard to spread if they were not true to some extent. Oh. Johann was quite amazed. He knew well, having many half-siblings himself and being familiar with the case of the Abner family. Generally, noble families, except for the firstborn, did not live restrained lives. While the firstborn had to succeed the family and live a politically calculated life, the rest could live as they pleased, wherever and however. Yet, it was strange for all the children to be so diligent, even considering this was a coincidence. Has the Duke decided on a successor yet? What? It seems unlikely they'd be so diligent without ambition. Surprised by Johann's words, Aklada responded with an astonished expression. Even so, there's a tradition, isn't the firstborn supposed to inherit? I'm not sure. There's always an exception, right? Don't the centaurs inherit differently? Aklada looked slightly pleased. It seemed he felt Johann was interested in the centaurs. True to his words, the centaurs divided everything equally. Starting from the eldest, they received their share of the farthest lands and left the herd. But the Duke is not a centaur, he's from the Empire, right? That's true. But this hunt, if it were a traditional Empire event, we wouldn't have done it. Though it's Empire land, it feels far from the Empire. Could it be that the Duke might leave his legacy to the youngest, like we do? Or maybe he hasn't decided on a successor yet. Anyway, thinking about it now makes me feel uneasy too. I might think so, but why would Sir Knight? It's never good to meddle in another family's affairs, is it? It hasn't been long since the conversation ended, and my worries have already become reality. Hello, Sir Johann. It's an honor to meet you, Elsa Gong. He encountered the Duke's eldest son in the corridor. It was clear that the Duke's firstborn had no reason to be here, so it must have been a deliberate visit. Having known Aklada, he could have easily brushed this off. Without him, he had no choice but to confront this alone. The servant leading the way had already stepped aside long ago, out of earshot. The Duke's eldest son, just like he had learned from the Duke, skillfully praised Johann. From troll hunting to exaggerating events in the West. It was clear they had heard from the Jarpen family or Suitk. The fact that he spoke about what happened to Stephen suggested it wasn't Stephen who had told him. Sir, I have a question I'd like to ask. What is it? How did you catch the werewolf? Johann hesitated. Should he tell? The conversation with Aklada earlier and this question made it clear. The Duke's children were competing. He didn't know yet what they were after or why they were competing. If the Duke represents current power, his children are the future power. It wouldn't hurt to get close to them. I knocked him down and then strangled him to death. I see, Sir Johann. I understand. I was thoughtless to ask. Johann was confused. Realizing his mistake, Johann internally cursed. Mixing with the Eastern warriors had eroded his common sense. The Duke's children weren't like the warriors who believed whatever Johann said. Such talk could only be interpreted as, "The Duke must have instructed you." No. Well, yes. It may be too late to say this, but if you could keep the fact that I said this a secret, I will not forget your kindness. I'm not someone who goes around talking nonsense, sir. And my memory isn't great either. Thank you. When Johann reassured him, the Duke's eldest son neatly gave up, thanked him, and left. His eyes mixed with disappointment and gratitude. Chapter 89.2. Even though he couldn't give the answer they wanted, he had at least extended a favor. However, the Duke's children didn't come one at a time. When someone who looked exactly like the eldest came, Johann initially thought the eldest had changed clothes and returned. "Have you been well, Sir Johann?" The second child also praised Johann in a similar manner. Except for a more arrogant and aristocratic tone, it was similar to the eldest's. Johann internally sighed. "By any chance, how did you? I knocked him down and then strangled him to death." I was short-sighted. Anita, like changing masks, altered her friendly demeanor. It was the face of a proudly burning aristocrat. "I will keep your secret." "I would appreciate that." Anita left. After encountering the Duke's children one after another just trying to go to the bathroom, Johann was getting irritated. But before he could enter, the third appeared. The third one approached in a more unique way, trying to put a bracelet and necklace around Johann's neck. Johann stopped the hand and said, "I knocked down the werewolf and then strangled him to death." "I am sorry." Thinking that Duke had already spoken, the third one was so flustered that his face turned pale. Johann said, looking him in the eye, "Don't worry. I will keep your secret." Thank you. I will definitely repay you." "Ha. I'm looking forward to it." After the third one left, when the servant approached again, Johann glared at him and said, "If someone blocks my way again, I'll break your neck." "I am sorry," the servant exclaimed in fear. Seeing this, Johann softened his heart. Well, how could I refuse the request of the Bradu bloodline? I understand. Thank you for understanding. But, one more person asked. Johann counted on his fingers. 3 had appeared, so there was one more, the youngest. Johann glared at the servant. He was evenly entertaining them in order. Please spare me. I won't kill you, just show me the way." He encountered the youngest child on the way back. It was evident that they were the youngest. They were short and slender. Their young age made it difficult to discern their gender by voice. Johann was more lenient on the way back. "Hello, Gong. This is such a coincidence." "It's not a coincidence. I've been waiting since before Elsa Gong spoke to you." "Is that so? But why?" "I didn't want to bother you as you seemed to be going somewhere." Johann was slightly impressed. To think such a young-looking person would have such thoughts. Of course, he was just going to the bathroom. "Are you curious about how I caught the werewolf?" Yes. I knocked him down and then strangled him to death." "Is that true?" "Why would I lie?" "Understood." The youngest withdrew with that. Johann returned to where Aklada was waiting, along with the servant. Aklada asked curiously, "Did you eat up the servant or something? Why did it take you so long?" Something even stranger happened. Regardless of what had happened, the banquet was peaceful. The Duke's children politely greeted the knights and exchanged compliments with each other. "Wow. They look so friendly, it's almost annoying." Sir Knight. "I always enjoy your stories, but please be careful in such gatherings." Aklada whispered in alarm upon hearing Johann's words. Even as a favored child of the tribe loved by the Duke, challenging authority in Duke's presence could cost him his head. "Don't worry. I spoke quietly enough not to be heard. Anyway, try this. Isn't this the same meat we were served in the town?" "Oh. To say that, you still have a long way to go. It's the same meat, but the secret is in the sauce." Meat grease mixed with white wine and a bit of almond milk? Aklada thought to himself. The image of strangling the werewolf king after a fierce beating was still vivid in his mind. It was like a warrior from a myth had come to life. But here he was, enjoying the taste of food like some rich, corpulent merchant. "Won't you have some?" "No, thank you. Indulging in delicacies makes the body heavy. Then I'll enjoy it myself." Duke's cooks presented large cuts of pork and beef, followed by game like pheasants, geese, and more common meats like lamb and veal. "Sir Knight." "Thank you." Other knights expressed their gratitude to Johann. The warriors present were knights who had joined the werewolf hunt. Originally, only Johann and Aklada would have attended, but Johann had requested the Duke to invite others. "Are you enjoying the drink?" "Yes. I'd like to take one of these silver cups home. If you want your wrist cut off, that's fine." "Ha ha. I'm not that drunk." "But inviting us like this, Sir Knight's catch must have been the most impressive, right?" The tribal warriors were brash and lacked manners. Unlike Johann and Aklada, they were unrestrained, eating heartily and shouting loudly. Despite this, the Duke did not restrain them but instead asked the musicians to play louder, creating a lively and informal atmosphere. In such a cheerful atmosphere, it was easier to ask questions. After ordering a slave to pour more wine, the Duke spoke. "I was truly impressed by this hunt. It wasn't just my effort." Eastern warriors, drunk and loud, looked up at Johann with curious eyes. The Duke was puzzled by their gaze. "Why are they looking at me like that?" Regardless, Johann brazenly continued. "Without the combined strength of all the warriors." "Fat. Ha ha. Hey. Don't laugh. Sir Knight is speaking. We wouldn't have been able to catch it." The drunken warriors now blushed, trying to hold back their laughter. "Combined strength? What nonsense." After he single-handedly beat it down and strangled it. Even the Duke couldn't contain his curiosity at this point. What in the world happened? Hunter does not share his secrets even with his lord, unfortunately. It's a pity I couldn't ask. Duke subtly hinted in his speech. He meant to ask indirectly, as it wouldn't suit his dignity to inquire directly. Of course, Johann wasn't oblivious enough to respond with, "No, that's not right. The warriors here, before being hunters, are knights of the Duke, are they not? Answering the Lord's question is also a matter of knightly honor. Duke, if I may, could I offer my opinion?" The Duke's eldest opened the conversation. The warriors looked on with great interest. Could Duke's eldest really guess this correctly? The Duke read determination in his children's expressions. It was an opportune moment to test them. The Duke nodded his head. "Speak your mind." Chapter 90.1. The centaurs are masters of hunting, and the Alcea tribe is the best among them. Surely they have used a deadly poison that even the werewolf king cannot resist. "Oh." Aklada marveled. "They think we have such skills?" Of course, it was impossible. Monsters are not only sensitive but also have strong vitality. They rarely touch poisoned prey, and even if they do eat it, they are likely to survive. The Duke was skeptical too. "What do you think?" "It's wrong, Duke." The first one stepped back with a disappointed expression. Next was the second. She said that it was clear that the werewolves were driven like wild beasts by the tribal warriors and defeated. Wild beasts tire and fall on their own after a long run. If werewolves did the same, they could have been captured without injury. You lack knowledge about monsters. Monsters, unlike beasts, do not tire and die in that manner. Moreover, werewolves are fierce and do not flee in fear even if hunters pursue them. What do you think, Sir Johann? You are wrong. As the second bit her lip and stepped back, the third gave up. The third just wanted to appear humble. Of course, Duke noticed this intention. It's okay to be wrong, but you have to present an answer. SOR. Sorry. All right. What do you think? Finally, the fourth spoke. I was curious and asked Sir Knight earlier. The siblings felt aghast at the younger one's remark. They never expected such a turn. Accepting one's shortcomings and giving up on the correct answer was also a way to stand out. Whether it was effective was uncertain, but it seemed better than the previous wrong answers. Really? And? So. I think after defeating the werewolf, it was captured by strangling its neck. The Duke staggered momentarily, surprised by the unexpected answer. His rare expression shocked his children present. Wasn't that the answer their father had decided? He told you that? Sir Knight is quite mischievous. There was no need to keep such a secret. Ah. Duke. That's how it was captured. Before Johann could speak again, the restless drunk warriors nearby blurted out first. It's true. Duke. You should have seen it. The werewolf was knocked down in one hit and captured by strangulation. Faced with such an extraordinary answer, everyone from the Bridoux family fell into a shocked silence. The Duke was the first to break it. Praise be to the knight who advances fearlessly before any monster. May blessings be upon you, sir. Blessings be upon you. The Duke's children also exclaimed, but their voices were filled with disbelief. Who could have thought that was true? The Duke decided to leave the unfortunate hunter alone. It was not his fault. After the luxurious banquet ended and day broke, the Duke announced the most impressive game to the gathered people. The warriors had to parade inside and outside the city, proudly displaying their game behind Duke's procession. The expressions of the warriors who received gold and silver coins as a reward for their bravery were unmistakably joyful. It was rare for the warriors here to be financially comfortable. Moreover, even if they were wealthy, such rewards were inevitably delightful. As Aklada walked away with a smile, Johann asked with curiosity, "Were you that happy?" "Ooh? Oh, it's not about being happy for the gold coins. Sir Knight. What do you take me for?" I laughed, remembering how the stars of Bridoux were surprised. "You have a good hobby. How many times will I see such a face in my life? By the way, Sir Knight, didn't Duke say anything else to you?" Although Johann's words led to the distribution of rewards to the warriors, the Duke, not being a fool, wouldn't have stopped at that. Even if he outwardly upheld others' dignity, behind the scenes, he had to take extra care of truly useful warriors. Otherwise, he would not qualify as a feudal lord. "Not yet. What did you receive?" "I was promised fine horses and flocks of sheep." "But such things are unnecessary for you, aren't they, Sir Knight? There's no tribe nearby." Johann was perceptive too. He could sense that the Duke was preparing something. Surely, it wouldn't be a bad condition, but he wanted to know in advance if possible. Chapter 90.2. I guess he might leave the soldiers in charge. While Johann was playing with werewolves in the prairie, Suetlug and others toured the city, mingling with the nobles. Thanks to this, they were able to understand what the eastern nobles were thinking. The Duke's power seems great, but there are many surprisingly unstable parts, from the south to the east. Frequent rebellions and invasions. This area is definitely stable, but the fiefdoms to the south and east are on a precarious balance. They are kingdoms, large and small, embarrassing to even call kingdoms, fighting among themselves, unknown nomadic tribes, and city-states of the Catalian Peninsula wary of the Duke. There were many forces nearby that could easily collude, so the Duke had to be even more cautious. Seeing him take care of the outside tribes, I thought that would be the case. It wouldn't be surprising if he entrusted the soldiers to you right away. Appeasement was good, but those who opposed the Duke and showed their teeth at the opportunity needed to be strongly sanctioned. And Johann was the Duke's newly acquired sharp sword. If he were a person, he would want to swing that sword. Suppressing rebellions is not too difficult. Personally, I wanted to strike at the Emperor's city or town. That's too much. Of course, the Duke isn't on good terms with Cardirian. Sinerna spoke up. She had been treated as well as Suetlug, but her experiences were different. But he didn't seem to want to fight right now. The Duke, an elector of the Empire, was more interested outside the Empire. He didn't want to get involved in the Empire's internal strife, leaving his vast lands unattended. The nobles even threw subtle messages to Sinerna, who would have been treated worse originally. So did the Emperor promise? How would I know? I'm here doing this. Sinerna said incredulously. How would she know the Emperor's decision while being stuck here? I'm asking for your judgment. If I had to guess, maybe he wouldn't pay. It would be crazy to make one more elector an enemy, especially when the western and southern nobles are sharpening their swords. It wasn't unusual for such dealings, like bribing and trading votes during the elector voting to elect the Emperor. Johann looked disappointed. He was thinking of fighting hard under the Duke if he ever aimed for the Emperor's fiefdom. Don't be too greedy. Originally, your goal was a knighthood. Now, you've achieved many times more than what you aimed for. That's true. I will grant the position of standard-bearer to Sir and bestow Dolek and Palmon as fiefs. As if he had heard Suitlug's words, the Duke called Johann and made a bombshell announcement. Johann tensed up and said, "Your Grace, Duke. I have not yet properly earned merits under your Grace." The position of standard-bearer under Duke's banner was close to an honorary title, so it was acceptable for now. But suddenly a fiefdom? To receive a fief as a knight, one had to be a dog and horse to the Lord's word and give one's all. Although Johann had performed exceptionally in tournaments and hunting, that reputation alone was not enough. There's always a catch to an offer that seems too good. Reading Johann's concerns, Duke gave a bitter smile and said, "I knew you were smarter than other knights, but it's inconvenient at times like this, isn't it? Don't worry. You'll understand once you hear the explanation." The Duke spread out a map and pointed to Dolek and Palmon, both port towns lying southward along the coast. This Aegean Sea to the west bordered the city-states of the Catalian Peninsula, and to the east, small duchies and kingdoms clung together, forming a sort of inland sea. It was almost embarrassing to call this the southernmost point of Duke's territory. From city-states to duchies, it was a location where anyone's reach wouldn't seem strange. Above these two towns, the city Umdim was once loyal to me. But either they took Brudu lightly, or had other beliefs. They delayed the promised tax and expelled my people. Sir, what do you think I should do in this situation? The fiefdoms, entangled in complex rights, were headache-inducing just by looking at the map. They were the result of long-standing entanglements through inheritance and independence. Ideally, one would want to wash their hands of it, but such an option didn't exist for the nobility. It was unthinkable for both fame and wealth. It seems necessary to show Brudu's name. Right. You've explained well. The Duke, with a handsome face, showed a smile and patted Johann's shoulder. You know that the towns under Umdim's rebellion wouldn't be loyal to me. Those two towns are the same. In essence, those two towns had a just cause for Duke, but in reality, they were towns not in the Duke's control. Reconquer them with your own power. It was more convincing to say it this way. It wasn't too good a condition, but at least there was a just cause. Taking the city was not something Johann's small band of mercenaries could do. It would take many times their number. As Johann looked troubled, the Duke decided to reveal his last card. This knight had the patience to resist tempting bait. Separate troops are being gathered for the Umdim subjugation. I can't offer you the position of commander-in-chief, no matter how highly I think of you. Leading the army will be someone else's task. At Duke's words, Johann felt a burden lifted. It would have been madness to gather and lead an army alone, but joining forces with other nobles' armies seemed feasible. Plus, he liked the location by the sea. It was a place where he could engage in trade by sea. And, though currently weak, the potential as a strategic location was high. The Duke, as if reading Johann's thoughts, spoke. In the past, it was said that those who couldn't inherit in their families went to the eastern part of the empire or to holy places. The East welcomes great warriors. With skill, one can shine there, especially a knight as capable as you. Thank you. Although flattered by Duke, Johann had already regained his composure. When do we depart? As soon as the snow melts. Until then, it's best to rest and gather troops. Understood. I will keep that in mind. At Johann's words, Suitlug was taken aback. It hadn't been long since Head told him not to be too greedy, and now here was this proposal. What do you think is the intention? At first, I wondered why, but in the end, it's about wanting a loyal, useful knight to secure that area, isn't it? Umdim and the nearby fiefdoms were too easy to betray. A place where even a breeze could prompt betrayal. Moreover, not betraying was also a problem. With enemies swarming around, an incompetent person could lose their fiefdom in an instant. From the Duke's perspective, he would want a trustworthy vassal to control the area and pledge loyalty. That was exactly Johann. Without ties to influential families in the region, he would be even more loyal to Duke, and in terms of bravery and strategic insight, there seemed to be no flaw. Wait. Speaking of which, isn't there an emperor's fiefdom in the south of the peninsula? If I go by boat, I could reach it, couldn't I? Think about that later. Is that what's important right now, Johann?